Hey and welcome to another demonstration video of emergency NGX from FS2 Crew. In this video we will continue where we left off with the engine fire and the engine failure during takeoff procedures. We will perform one engine inoperative landing, and when we have stopped the aircraft on the runway we will do the evacuation of the aircraft in addition to that. The one engine inoperative landing checklist concerns mainly the approach speeds we have to use, as well as the go-around procedures and a bit of the bleed air configuration of the plane to have maximum thrust available. And then as well, since we're using a flaps 15 approach, we will put the ground proximity flap inhibit switch to flap inhibit, which will override any warnings from the ground proximity system concerning our flaps configuration. So here we are in the holding over Flesland, Bergen, Foxtrot, Lima, Sierra, an altitude of 4000, where we left off after the engine fire and the engine failure procedures, and we will now take our time to prepare the landing again in Flesland. And the first thing we need to do is call for the one engine inoperative landing checklist. One engine inoperative landing checklist.
Flaps 30 or landing using flaps 15?
Flaps 15.
One engine inoperative landing checklist. Condition: landing must be made with one engine inoperative. Airplanes with fail operational auto land capability should use this checklist, and yes, that's sus. Choose one. Landing using flaps 30 if performance allows, or landing using flaps 15. Okay, well we'll use flaps 15. Go to step 2. Use flaps 15 and VREF 15 or VREF ice for landing and flaps 1 for go around. If any of the following conditions apply, set VREF ice, which is equal to VREF 15 plus 10 knots. Engine anti-ice will be used during landing. Wing anti-ice has been used any time during the flight. Icing conditions were encountered during the flight and the landing temperature is below 10 degrees C. Note, when VREF ice is needed, the wind additive should not exceed 10 knots. Maintain VREF 15 plus 5 knots or VREF ice plus 5 knots minimum on final approach to assure sufficient manoeuvre margin and speed for go around. Note, auto land operations are not authorised when landing with flaps 15. Use engine anti-ice on the operating engine only. Checklist complete except deferred items.
Okay, that was the checklist. We will use flaps 15 and the VREF for VREF ice. We have temperatures below 10 degrees and I think that's the safer choice here. So we have to program FS2 Crew now. We use vectors. I will use the ILS fail passive as well. Runway conditions as dry and the ice is not required. We will use flaps 15. Auto brake, I will use auto brace 3, that should be okay. We are not heavily overweight. We are close to the maximum landing weight, not above. So I think max braking is not necessary. We will use no bleeds during the landing to have all thrust available as possible. And the barometric decision height is 370, but I will brief the departures soon. So then I've done that once more. And now I actually go through the brief with my first officer. Are you ready for the approach brief?
I'm ready for the brief.
Okay, so we use the Flesland Bergen ILS 17 arrival, and the ILS frequency is 109.9, identifier as Bravo Romeo, final approach track is 171. We will fly from the Flesland VOR Foxtrot Lima Sierra on the radial 330 until DME 10 from Flesland VOR, and then we do a right turn to intercept the ILS on a track of 171. We will do that on an initial altitude of 3000 feet, and then at DME 8 from Flesland, Foxtrot Lima Sierra, we should intercept the glide path and then descend towards the runway. The minimum descent altitude or decision height for the ILS approach is 370 feet. We have a missed approach procedure that reads as follows: climbed on 171 to Bravo Tango Alpha, Liberata, NDB, join Barata holding point climbing to 4,000 feet. However, I think it would be cleverer if we actually use the engine failure procedure once again, and I would assume that ATC would vector us anyway in another direction. So in case we have to do the missed approach, we will climb to 1,100 feet or to DME 8 of Flesland, Foxtrot Lima Sierra, whichever is later. Then we do a right turn to heading 270, and above 2,500 feet we will turn to the Flesland holding point again and go there into a holding. That's it for the approach briefing. We have no terrain in the near vicinity. Visibility is okay, so there should not be any problems. Any questions?
No questions.
So this was it now for the approach briefing. The FO will now do his duties and we will do ours, and then I call for the descent checklist.
I'm ready for the checklist when you are.
One thing we have to do before we actually go to the checklist is that I lower the cruise altitude to 4,000, because we don't reach our planned cruise altitude and I don't want to trigger off-schedule descent, so I just lower the cruise altitude to 4,000 feet. Another thing is that we now have our course set already to the 171, this is the final track of our via ILS. We can tune in our ILS frequency, but I have it already on standby. That's something I do normally when I start from an airport, that I tune on standby of the Lev 1 already the ILS that would be needed in an emergency. So we have it here on 109.9, as you can see. Then we have to put in our decision height. It was 370 feet. And finally we have to type in our VREF and flaps for the landing. So he gives me 132 knots for the approach, but the VREF ice is 10 knots faster than that, so we just clear that out and choose 142 and place that into our CDU. And then we are good to call the descent checklist. Descent checklist.
Pressurization. Landing altitude 150 feet. Recall checked. Water rate level 3. Landing data VREF 142. Minimums 370 feet. Approach briefing completed. Descent checklist complete.
If additional go-around thrust is needed, configure the pressurization system for a no-engine bleed landing when below 10,000 feet. Go-around procedure review. Do the normal go-around procedure, except use flaps 1, maintain VREF 15 plus 5 knots or VREF ice plus 5 knots until reaching flap retraction altitude. Limit bank angle to 15 degrees when airspeed is less than VREF 15 plus 15 knots, or VREF ice plus 5 knots, or the minimum manoeuvre speed, whichever is lower. Accelerate to flaps 1 manoeuvring speed before flap retraction.
I think it is wise to actually configure for additional go-around thrust. So this is by switching the wing anti-ice off, which is already in our case. Then we have to close our isolation valve. It is closed. Then we have to switch off bleed air from engine 1. This is done by that. APU bleed air switch on. Do not open the APU bleed air valve if the engine fire switch is illuminated. That's not the case.
Check.
As we can verify here. And so we can turn the bleed air from the APU on. And then the left pack switch goes to auto. And now bleed air switch from number 2 is off. So this is it for the additional go-around thrust configuration. And now I will descend to 3000 feet, which is our initial altitude for the approach. And we can call as well for the approach checklist. Once again, I want to mention that we are flying without auto throttle, so you have to have a close eye on your thrust settings and on your speed.
Localizer alive.
Approach checklist.
Altimeters 1017.
Altimeters 1017 set.
Approach checklist complete.
So now we are on 3000 feet. We will do our last turn in the holding. I will already set the heading to 330. We should follow the outbound radial on 330. I think it's sufficient enough if we just do it with heading select. The winds are not that fast up here, so I don't think there will be too much drift. And we should be able to follow the track precisely enough with the heading. So here we see now as well that we have already identified ILS correctly. We have Romeo Romeo on a track of 171, that's the correct ILS, and we are free to use it. We are now Flesland BOR, and I switch to heading select. And then I start as well with a small slowdown, and I will call for flaps 1. Flaps 1.
Flaps 1. Cabin crew, take your seats.
One difference to the normal landing checklist now during the flaps 15 landing checklist is that the FO will actually switch off, push the flap inhibit switch here, and this will suppress any warnings from the ground proximity system. Normally it will tell us that if we don't have selected landing flaps and we come close to the ground, it will give a oral warning, and we don't want that because we have chosen deliberately flaps 15, so you can suppress that by pushing one of those switches here. Then we need one for flaps. TME is 10 is coming up, and then I will do a right turn to intercept the ILS. And now I can as well slow down even more and call for flaps 5. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5. Glide slope alive.
So now we try to intercept our localizer and the glide slope, and I will activate here our localizer. Localizer is captured, and now we're on the approach. Glide slope is captured, and now we can call for flips 15 and landing gear down. Gear down.
Gear down.
Flaps 15.
Flaps 15.
Set VREF plus 5.
GPWS, flap inhibit to inhibit. Set.
I can now call for the landing checklist. Landing checklist.
Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 15. Green light.
Landing checklist complete.
Good. So now we have an eye on the speed. We have to set the thrust correct. Do not drop in speed too much. I will fly down to the decision altitude, and then I will take over manually and land the airplane. In this situation, it is advised that you don't flare too much. You will rather fly the airplane into the runway. So it's okay to have a hard landing in this situation. So it's just for the benefit of your braking distance.
.500 feet. Approaching minimums.
Approaching minimums.
Continue.
Check.
Minimums.
Minimums.
$100. 50. 30, 20, 10.
Speed brakes up. Reverse green. .60 knots.
Okay, the next thing is that we call for the evacuation checklist. Evacuation checklist.
Evacuation checklist. Condition: evacuation is needed. Park brake. Set. Speed brake lever. Down. Flap lever. 40. Pressurization mode selector. Manual. Outflow valve switch. Hold in open until the outflow valve position indicates fully open. If time allows, Verify that the flaps are 40 before the engine start levers are moved to cut off. Engine start levers, both, cut off. Advise the cabin to evacuate. Advise the tower. Engine and APU fire switches, all, override and pull. If an engine or APU fire warning occurs, illuminated fire switch, rotate to the stop and hold for 1 second. Evacuation checklist complete.
Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. And I would need to do the call for the tower. That would be something like Bergen, Flesland, Scandinavian something. Have landed safely and will evacuate the aircraft on the runway. You can as well see now that all the doors have opened, so the passengers can actually leave the plane. And that's it for this flight. It was not a perfect landing, I did flare too much, but I think we went down safely. So thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye.